Oh man, it's amazing that people like call you like right when you're in the middle of doing something. Okay.
Yeah, so no, I think we're on 20. So
You think you're on what?
you can turn that one, maybe. Let me. Okay, let's see what happens. Let me show you. Okay, let's see. We're there. Yeah. Shalom, shalom.
Shalom, shalom.
Shalom. Is it okay? Yeah. Can you get in the shot then? Better? Better? Yeah. Okay. Let's see.
Okay, so we're good. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
all right, so we're gonna, we're gonna high level. So I think it's important to at least write down like these points for clarity points to refer back to, because I looked a little bit ahead and we're gonna like jump into hyperspace. So okay, so if we can, and if I had paper, I would write it down, but like I would write down like a cat like a four different categories, right? But all next to each other, the same way that we saw earlier. Let me see if I can bring it up. Actually, you saw that? You remember how we had it? Hold on, I'm gonna bring it up. Okay, so okay, so let's go back a little bit, and we can see how it's breaking in categories, because it's really important to have this as a point of reference. Hold on. Second. Look at here we go. Yeah, so these are the categories. You see these categories? Okay, so what? Okay, so one category you could put on top of it worlds. That's one category you could do is worlds. Another category is souls, and then another category is wait souls worlds, and then oh, and also the five aspects of the name of God, right? So the name of God, so that's one category itself as well, right? And then you have this idea of the sphirot, right? Which you have five categories there. So if you put in those five categories, if you write them down on a piece of paper, I will fill them in right now. Okay. So in a category for worlds, right? The top world is Adam Kadmon. The second world, Adam Kadmon, Adam Kadmon, Adam Kadmon. The second level is Asilut, and that's Atzilut. The third level is Bria, Beria. Yitzira, fourth level, Yetzira. And the final level is Asya, right? Asiya, right? So those are the five worlds, right? From top to bottom. So next to that is souls, right? So you have the soul, the top level of the soul is Chaya, Haya. The second level underneath that is how did I hear it? Chaya Yechida. Yeah, I don't see. Where does it say Yechida at the? Hold on. Chaya Neshama. Oh, Yechida. Yeah, sorry. That top level is Yechida. Sorry, my apologies. Sorry, my bad. The top level of the soul is Yechida. The second level is Chaya, and that's it. So Yechida is Yehida. Haya is Hayya. The level underneath Haya is Neshama, Neshama. The lower below that is Ruach, Ruac, and the last level is Nefesh, right? Which is Nefesh, right? So these are the different levels of the soul, right? And then so when you bring in the five letters of God, right? So you say, where does the five letters? It says Yud Hey Vav Hey, right? In that order, right? But the top level of that is Adam Kadmon because it's the tip of the Yud, right? So the Yud, the first letter of that Yud Hey Vav Hey has the tip of that letter Yud is a world in itself above, right? So you have that, and so you have the unit. So you have those five. You have those five um, levels of the tetragrammaton, and then you have the five aspects of the sphirot, which is Keter, is Keter.
Hold on, Rabbi. So the third section is dealing with the names of God, dealing with his the letters of his name. Is that what the third section is?
The first section is the first section is the first section is worlds, right? The next level is souls, and then the
Okay.
third level is the name of God,
Okay.
and the fourth category is the Sfirot, which was Keter, Chokmah, Bina. Remember that, and Tiferet and Malchut, which will be explained in more detail later. But this is the pendulum. This is
Okay.
the system that he's working off of, right? And he says, and so
Okay.
within the dynamics of the worlds and in the dynamic of the worlds and even the souls, right? Which because they're all connected, right? You see, you have the four levels of evolution, which is rock, inanimate, plant, abnate, and then animal and human. So within each of the five worlds, these levels exist,
Yes.
right? Okay, so these are important things because as we go further, he's going to be referring and talking about this system, right? These systems of thought, like how the soul is connected to all these different worlds, how all these different worlds in the soul are connected to the expressions of the name of God, right? And then we have an energy system of calculation, which is Keter Chokmah Bina, Tiferet, and Malchut, right? Right? So the five phases, if you want to call it that, right? So you have the five phases, you have the five levels of the soul, um you have the five worlds, you have all these things, and so this is the premise. Okay, so we're going to continue on. It's important we did that because it's just going to you'll see. All right. Okay, let's go. Okay, let's go back to where we left off. Okay, so we're here. So it's Vehine Adam Be'at She Noled Yishtelo Takef. Okay, so he says like this. Man needs for the worlds at the levels of Na'ara. So what is this level of Na'ara? Wow, now you guys knowing codes, you're learning the Kabbalistic codes. This is about the levels of the soul, right? Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chaya, Yakida. You see it in there? The N, R, NHA. Wow, now you got the secrets, right? Sorry. So you have that, right? So you have that. So he says a person is born with an aspect of the soul of sanctity, right? It says nefesh de kedusha, right? The nefesh kedusha, right? He said this is not the real soul, but the back of the soul. It is reverse size, which is referred to as point due to its smallness. So just listen to this again. He says this is not the real soul, but the back of the soul. So he's saying so this aspect of this soul of sanctity is not the real soul. It's the back of the soul. And he says it's on the reverse side, and he says, and from this reference, which is a reference to as point, due to its smallness. It is enclosed in the person's heart. That is in the desire to receive, which exists primarily in a person's heart. Okay? So he's saying this aspect of the soul is the soul of this aspect of sanctity, right? And this aspect of sanctity, this aspect of the soul is connected directly to the heart, right? And it's inside the heart. And he says, in the heart itself, in itself, is the main mechanism that creates the desire inside of the body, right? It's an expression of the spiritual limbs, right? So he says, and one should know the following rule. Anything that occurs in the reality occurs in each specific world. And even in the smallest describable element of that world, there are 5 worlds in totality of things. These are the 5 sphirot, Keter, Chokmah, Bina, Tiferet, Malchut, right? 5 phases. And this is the code for that. Kahavatam, right? So Keter, Chokmah, right? Where's the Bina? Keter, Chokmah, Bina, Tiferet, Malchut. Interesting. So that vav, I guess we're saying, is the V is representing Tiferet for Bina, and then the Tiferet and the Malchut are represented in this Tam. So Kava Tam. All right. So that's the code for that phrase. So you will see this code used, and now he's giving it to you. He's just laying it out for you. He's making it so easy. Life is so easy. So he says like this: the same 5 sphirot are present in each and every world, and there are 5 Kahav Tam Sphirot in the smallest part of each world. And so he says, so he says, the same 5 Sphirot are present in each world. So he's saying each of the worlds, now he's adding another element. So each of the worlds that you have also have those 5 those 5 phases. Keter, Chokmah, Bina, Tiferet, Malchut. That also exists within the frame of each of the worlds, right? So each world has these 5 strokes. So it gets more complicated, but he's expanding our thinking. And he says, we also mention that the world is divided into inanimate, plant, animal, and human, which corresponds to the 4 sphirot of Chokhmah, Bina, Tiferet, and Malchut, right? So that aspect of the 5 sphirot that exist inside of every world, within those worlds, as we said, also exist the idea of the inanimate, right? The inanimate plant, animal, and human, which corresponds to the 4 sphirot of Chokhmah, Bina, Tiferet, and Malchut, right? Notice he didn't have Keter there, right? So he used that 4 in the frame of Chokhmah, Bina, Tiferet, and Malchut. As in the 5, it's Keter, Chokhmah, Bina, Tiferet, and Malchut. So he's using the frame of that 4 to explain the 4 inanimate levels that exist within all the worlds. So he says in the animate's parallel Malchut. So he's saying, so this is another category now, right? So now there's a category of inanimate. Well, I think you did. Did we do? No, we didn't do that. So there's another category. There's another category now you can add, which is the inanimate the four kingdoms, right? Inanimate, plant, animal, and human. And now what he's going to do is he's going to connect those levels, and he's going to connect those levels to another four levels, which is the aspect of Chokmah Bina Tefer de Malchut. And he's going to explain how that works. So he says the inanimate connects to the level of Malchut, right? So the level of Malchut is in the frame of inanimate. So the rock kingdom is in the frame of Malchut. Then you have the plant parallels, right? You have the plant kingdom, which is above that, which is Tiferet. And you have the animal kingdom with parallels Bina, right? So you have this idea of Bina, right? And then so he says, in the human kingdom represents Chokhmah. And so he says the root of all of these are Keter. So that's why Keter doesn't have to be put into the equation, because the root, the essence of where they all emanate from, is Keter. But now we see that the different levels of the kingdom also are connected to the different levels of the world, which are also connected to the different phases. In this case, this is the four phases. So there's the five phases and the four phases. The five phases is Keter, Chokmah, Bina, Tiferet, Malchut, and that goes into the frame of each of the worlds. But within those worlds, there is animate, plant, animal, and human within those worlds, and those are expressed through Malchut, being the rock kingdom, uh, uh, um, Tiferet representing the plant kingdom, and the animal kingdom representing Bina, and then the plant and the human kingdom representing Chokhmah, right? So he's making those parallels. So these are all systems of thought, and these systems of thought are so important because these system of thoughts are the basis of how the holy texts are written in. It's the codes. Most people don't understand. They read the Bible from a European academic standpoint. And so they don't realize that in the Eastern standpoint, words have multiple meanings, meaning that one word could have 100 meanings. And so those 100 meanings, especially in Hebrew, which is a combination of letters. So one word could have 80 meanings, but then if you change the vowels, the words themselves could mean completely different things, right? And so from there, there's a whole nother set of meanings, right? So when people analyze the Jewish text, they go into it and they say, oh, it's the rabbis. It's like, no, they're not the rabbis. They're going off of the text. They just have a different mechanism of analyzation. They have a different set of meanings. You only have one set of definitions, or maybe a couple. But even the couple definitions that you have, you wouldn't be able to reword the sentence with new definitions and have a coherent thought. The tradition allows that. It creates that. That's how we're able to have this wisdom. It's all coming from the text, right? And so the root of all of them is parallel keter. As mentioned, each particular example in every type, inanimate, plant, animal, and human, also contain an aspect of the four elements. That is to say, a particular example among the species of humans, even one particular human, contains four types, which are the four aspects of the levels of desire. He says, which are enclosed and pointed in the soul of sanctity. Ah, wow. He brought us back. So he's explaining this soul of sanctity, and how the soul of sanctity is really, the soul is connected to all aspects of creation, right? The soul in itself is an expression of the rock kingdom, the plant kingdom, the animal kingdom, the human kingdom. We're an expression of that, right? And he's saying that the aspect of us that's an expression of that is the sanctity soul that's connected directly to the heart, right? So he says, "Umi terem yud gimel shana lo yitze." He said, "Yitzevir shum giluila ala avehana nachakudot sheva vevu." And before the age of 13, there could be no revelation to that point in the heart. So now you see where this whole thing is coming from in his revelation of heart. After the age 13, once he begins his involvement with Torah and mitzvot, even if he does so without intentions or without proper intentions, that is without the love and the fear appropriate for one who serves the king, still the point of his heart begins to grow and display its action. For the mitzvot do not require intention. Therefore, the actions done without proper intention can still purify the desire to receive. If only the first level refers to enamnet, to the extent that he purifies the inanimate aspect of his desire to receive, he builds the 613 limbs in that point in his heart, namely the inanimate aspect of his soul, its sanctity. So now you're saying how this thing is moving. So he's saying that this aspect of the different aspect of these kingdoms, inanimate, abnate, plant, animal, and human, all these things are development points. And these development points are the points that he's talking about that are a byproduct of the age of 13, right? When that free will, when you have the ability to expand outside of that desire to receive for oneself, you're able to expand out of that, and you're able to expand out of that. And then from out of that, you could basically, from out of that, you could say, like, okay, well, I'm out of this situation. I'm out of this situation. But the work is done by the mitzvot, right? By doing this, by doing that. The Torah says this, Torah says don't do that. You connect to the 248 things the Torah says, go after, do those things. And then there's 365 things that the Torah says, stay away from it. You're prohibited. This is not for you. So by doing those things, even if you don't have understanding of all the worlds and this or whatever, those actions purify that aspect of the soul that comes out, that's connected to the part of the heart that is expressing this kind of this uniqueness. And so he says there's different levels, right? So the lowest level is to do it without any intentions. He says on that level, that's connected to the lower of the four levels of desire, and that desire is the inanimate side. He says, but even if a person does the mitzvot at that level, he in essence elevates that part and builds a kingdom in that reality, right? In that particular frame, and he could go higher, right? Okay, and so he says, the fear is appropriate who serves the king, still the point in his heart begins to grow and display actions. For the mitzvahs do not require proper intention. Therefore, actions done without the proper intentions can still purify the desire to receive. If only the first level referred to as inanimate, to that extent that he purifies the inanimate aspect of his desire to receive, he builds the 613 limbs at that point in his heart, namely the inanimate aspect of his soul of sanctity. He says, Uke shani shalem bakol mitzvot mechinat. So he says like this. So he says, and namely the perfecting of each of the 613 mitzvot. And this one's done it. So he says the 613. He says the 613 mitzvot and the 600 limbs in the point of the heart. And the inanimate aspect of the soul of sanctity will also be perfected. The 248 limbs are built by performance of the 248 positive commandments, and the 360 spiritual limbs are built through keeping the 600 keeping the 665 negative commandments. So he's saying, and we learned this before, right? The body, when God blows a soul into Adam, what he's expressing, what he blew into him was a living soul. This living soul was consist of 300, 265, 250, 248 like organs, for lack of a better term, and 300 and 665, like limbs, for lack of a better term. But all of these parts, these expressions that are all spiritual expressions that God blew in with the ruach, had these shapes, and these shapes fit perfectly in the way that the human body was designed. And when that spirit of life, that nefesh chaya, was blown into the ruach, was blown into the nose and the nostrils of Adam Rishon, and it blew this spiritual body into existence, into this physical body that was lifeless, and then he became a living being. And so he's saying the whole basis of the human being is an expression of this spiritual neshama. And the only way that you could feed these limbs of the spiritual that of the spiritual neshama is through the Torah and the mitzvot. And the physical limbs themselves that we have physically are only an expression of those spiritual limbs, even though the body was already designed. But it was only designed to host the spiritual limbs. So to the point that every time we transgress, we create a blockage over that spiritual limb. And if we don't remove that blockage by performing the mitzvot and doing tshuva, then that spiritual limb is not going to receive light and it will wither away. Just like the human body, when the soul leaves, when the host leaves, the body, it falls apart in the ground. And so he says, eventually the point of the heart becomes the perfected parsuf, the face of the soul of sanctity. The soul then ascends and encloses the sphere of Malchut, which is the spiritual world of Asiya, right? You know these words, right? The soul ascends enclosed into the sphere of Malchut. You know what Malchut, which is the spiritual world of Asiya. You know what Asiya is. It's a world of action. In all the particular spiritual inanimate plants and animals aspects of the world parallel the spheres of Malchut in Asiya, serve as an assistance to the parsuf of a person's soul, who extends there to the extent that a person has understood them, that they understand the spiritual essence providing in the spheres of Malchut of the world of Asiya, in all the perfections that are appropriate to enlighten the human, enlighten the human, the body of man. So he's saying that's the main thing, right? The main thing is to be able to understand this progressional pattern, right? And to be able to understand that the physical body is an expression of spiritual limbs. In the world that we live in is expressing of a spiritual reality. Our soul is literally broken into 5 parts, existing in 5 different worlds right now. And those 5 different worlds that we live in right now have different phases, right? Keter, Chokhmah, Bina, Tiferet, and the Malchut, right? In that aspect, within those aspects, there's 4 qualities of creation that exist in each aspect of the world, which is in each aspect of the soul at a different level. And what are these different levels? Rock, plant, animal, human. And so this is the dynamic. And so as we correct the different parts of ourselves through learning Torah, doing mitzvot, we climb and ascend to these different spiritual realities, right? And so that's it. So he says, Ve'ir hashalem hahu. And so he says, in the perfected lights, so he says that in the perfected light assisted the person to invest efforts in Torah mitzvot and to ascend to a greater heights. As we said, a person is born is physically born with the point of light from the soul. From those points are enclosed within the soul. Similarly, the parsuf of the soul is sanctified, is born. It is born with the point of the next high level, and the lowest aspect of the light of the spirit of Asiya, which is enclosed in the inner parts of the parsuf of the soul. He says the same is true for all the levels. Each is born in the lowest aspect, which is a rock, and of the level above, and so is also born. So he says, and that is the link and the connection between the higher and lowers, from the greatest heights, and the unique properties of the point in the lower world, right? So here's the connection between the upper worlds and the lower worlds. They're all connected. They're just different stages. So they all are building blocks from the next, from inanimate to plant to human, to the world of Malchut, to the world of the world of Absolute, the world of Ruach, you get the point. You get the point. You get the point. Okay. So he says like this, and we will finish off on his last one. So he says Ve'ur ha-nefesh hazeh mekuna b'Hashem or. So he says like this, and the light of the soul is called demim kadosha. He said the light of the holy emanations of the world of Asiya. So this is the world of Asiya, which is connected to the world of Malchut, which is connected to the level of the soul of the Nefesh. The goal is to purify the inanimate part of the desire, Okay, so I want to stop here actually at 45 because this is a new idea, and we really did cover a lot of ground on this concept. So just have some reflections on this.
No, no, I don't have any. We don't have anything yet. We're just trying to work through it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I hear that. No, I mean, hey, it's work. You know what I mean? It's a different system of learning, but this is what we have to learn in order to really go into the Torah correctly. So hold on one second. So we could do a little bit of halakha to bring it down a little bit, right? You know, you got to bring it down. Hold on. So yeah, so this is the system of thought, you know, and these are the different programs, and this is like we're spending all of our days, you know, here in yeshiva, you know, going over this. This is a big thing that Rabbi Pinchas was, you know, that he spent a lot of time with us on this. You know what I mean? Almost a year straight of just this systems and applying it to. Okay, hold on.
Yeah. These are definitely concepts that you have to um, you know, go back and read over and go back again and read over in order to get a deeper understanding of just the structure of it.
Yeah, exactly. And it takes time. You'll get used to it, and then eventually it'll just be secondhand, right? Okay, so all right, so let's so we're gonna do a little bit of halacha. We're gonna learn about the halachot forbidden objects. And so we're gonna see what that's about. Hold on, let me bring up the screen. Hold on. Yeah, so the key thing is like, you know, it's so important, you know, like for us to like learn together and to have number one a common language, right? Because you could go and you know talk to Torah and weekly Torah person and all that type of stuff, and you know you could do those types of things. But the reality is that you know you have to have a common language, right? And that's what we're establishing. And also we're seeing the greatness of the sages. We're getting greatness of the thinking process behind this Torah thought, right? And it far extends so much, right? All right, so let's keep going. So we're in Shulchan Aruch, Halakha 64. And it says, Kol daver she asur mina haTorah be'al kila af al pi shehu. So he says any article of food that are forbidden to eat and articles used exclusively as food, even though you are allowed to make use of it, you cannot offer it for sale or use it as security or a loan. Okay, let's try to understand what's going on. Okay, any article of food that is forbidden to you to eat. Okay, so that's a clear point. So anything that is asur, you cannot eat. Hold on, let me see. Hold on. Okay. All right, so let's go back. So anything, so that's the first sentence. Anything that's asur to eat, right? So, okay, so what does this mean? Anything asur to eat, things that are not kosher. He says, and the articles used exclusively as food, even though you are allowed to make use of it, you cannot offer it for sale or use it as security for a loan. Even buying it to feed your non-Jewish workers is prohibited. So they're saying like this: when it comes to non-kosher food, you can't you cannot draw any type of benefit from it. You know what I'm saying? Like you can't even if you have non-Jewish workers, you can't go and buy them kosher food for them to eat. It's prohibited. But if it is something that is not used for food, such as a horse or a donkey, you may do business with it. So anytime, so you can't go and like do business with pigs. You know what I'm saying? Very funny. So anyway, he says, and you may also deal in forbidden. You said you may also deal in forbidden fats of an animal, for it is said in regards to it, you may use it forbidden fats for any purpose you desire. Okay, that's an interesting point. So it says, "Im nizada meina le adama be'acharei daver asur." He says, and if by chance you happen to acquire forbidden things, for example, while fishing, you catch a ritually unclean fish in your net, or you find that an animal that died a natural death, or an animal that has been killed by a wild beast in your house, you're allowed to sell it since you did not intend to acquire it. He says, but you may sell a living animal, but what he says, but you must sell a living animal at once, and it may not wait until it grows fat in your possession. He says, and you will also sell it through an agent. Although an agent will make a profit from the sale, but the agent may not buy it from it outright. For in that case, he would be doing business with forbidden merchandise. Okay, so that's kind of interesting point. So he's saying, so say like you wake up one day, you guys are kind of like in the outskirts. So you wake up one day and there was or say you went fishing, right? You went fishing and you had a net and you found an unclean fish, right? He says, because he just made a point, we can't draw any benefit from a non-kosher animal, right? So, or very little, right? And so he's saying, so over here he makes another point. He says, if by chance you happen to acquire a forbidden thing, for example, while fishing, you catch a ritually unclean fish in the net, or you find an animal that died a natural death, or an animal that has been killed by a wild beast in your house. You are allowed to sell it, since you did not intend to acquire it, but you must sell it, a living animal, at once. And you may not keep it in your possession. It grows fat. So he's just giving regulations on what you can do, what you can't do. Bekim mutar sorry, league bot bakol hadivarim. So he says, and he says, and you also are allowed to collect unclean things as payment for debt, but you must sell them at once. It is forbidden to keep them in order to make a profit from them, but you're permitted to wait long enough as to not suffer any losses on the capital. So it is permitted to deal in articles such as cheese of non-Jews who whose consumption is forbidden only by rabbinical decree. Now, what is he talking about specifically? We'll go into it at some point. So anyway, so there was the Holocaust on how to deal with forbidden objects, or in this case, he's talking about food. We're not supposed to profit from them. We're not supposed to have them in our possession. We're supposed to get rid of them immediately, and always, we don't want to lose money on it, right? So we don't want to profit so much, but we don't want to lose for sure, right? And we just want it out of our possession. And it's just an idea in general. When you think about the idea that we were talking about earlier about the 248 mitzvot and the 360 foot, the 365 uh, things we stay away from. It's that idea of the staying away from it is one. I remember this one rabbi would always say, you know, um, you know, become the mitzvah. Don't just do the mitzvah, become the mitzvah. Meaning, like, he used example of when you're in, say, a synagogue or you're praying, right? You're not having idle chatter. You're not just talking about whatever, right? And so he's saying that's in the synagogue, right? You're standing in front of God. So he said, but the same thing exists when you're walking on the streets. You're also in front of God, and you're also standing from. So you shouldn't have idle chatter there either, right? All your words to be used for goodness, for holiness. Just the same way they are in the shul, right? So you're becoming the mitzvah at that point. You're not just doing the mitzvah; you're becoming the mitzvah. So this whole prohibition of removing, any unclean animal for our possession, whatever, is living the life of nothing impure, nothing unclean is coming into my sanctum in general. And if it does, it's removed immediately, right? And so that's when we take the halakha and we make it a part of who we are. It's a worldview. It's not just an action. It's a worldview. It's how we see the world. Everything that the halakha is asking us to do is building a worldview of how we see everything in that space, right? So in this case of impure animals, boom, we don't do, right? So, anyways, any thoughts, any perspectives on this? Or
Yes. Yes.
No,
You want to?
it just makes me think about one of our clients who actually offered you and the boys to clear their land. Okay, this guy has hundreds and hundreds of acres, and he's like, whatever you kill, you can take it, sell it, this and that. And my husband's like, well, no, we don't we don't even consume hogs. We don't have no part. We don't even want to deal with that. So no,
Yeah.
thank you.
It's
It
yeah.
was it was very interesting.
Yeah. Because here in Texas, in many parts of Texas, you have a situation where they are feral hogs, and they run rampant, and they are a true nuisance. And so you don't even have to have a hunting license to shoot and kill them because there's so many of them. And so we have a client that their property is the hogs, they can damage your property, they can cause ruts and different things. And so he just asked us, he said, listen, man, can y'all come out and just shoot the hogs? And he'll pile them up, and like, nah, we're not doing that, because we actually have another client that he offered to uh say, hey, listen, when we go hunting, we'll hunt, and when we shoot a deer, we may not even eat it. And he's like, man, if I shoot a deer, can I call you up and you come and just y'all can have it, right? So I was like, no, no, and we have to slaughter our animals. We can't, like, violently take a animal's life like that. And so it's that's one of the things that I guess we can look at and say, we can go and get it and then sell the meat or sell it. We just can't eat it. But it's just, it's better to just kind of stay away from a lot of that stuff and just try to be very cautious.
yeah,
But the
no,
other thing I was thinking about was when you said in your house.
Mhm.
No, when it said in your house, that just made me think of, like, not. I mean, something could, I guess, die in your house, but I guess is the word house used like in your grounds, your land, your dwelling, basically.
Right.
So, like, if on the land something was to die, that you could get rid of that or use it for profit. But that's just very interesting.
Yeah. Now I can understand, fishing, because, like, if you go to East Texas, you can crab and all of that. That's it's big down there. So there's times you can be fishing and you pull up a fish and you have a crab attached to it. You know, so I can see how that definitely can be an issue.
well, and the thing is
No,
too.
that's about it.
No, I was just gonna say that when we go back on the teachings of Rav Ashlag and we think about this idea of how that point of the unique desire is expressed through the heart, right? And that aspect of the heart, being that element where the core of the desire to receive is from there. So, like, now that we understand these principles, we can hear different statements in the Torah about the purification of the heart. Now we understand what they're saying, right? The circumcising of the heart, all these different things that we're talking about. We're talking about the removal of the desire to receive, the unleashing of the inner aspect of the soul that represents our uniqueness, represents our unique self, the self that is not connected to the desire to receive, the self that is the reason why we were created to reveal the self, right? In the gift of the Torah is that it gives us the ability to do that, right? And to change the condition of our heart. Not saying, oh, I got a bad heart, a good heart. No, to unleash its potential, right? To unleash the potential of that true desire and that true self that is expressed through the heart, to change the heart, because when people have anger issues, what does it do? It affects their heart. So what's happening? That means that the anger that they're expressing is the sages said it's like a denial of the Torah. So what does that mean? It's a denial of the Torah. That means that in that moment of anger, no lights, none of your spiritual limbs can be fed because you've now cut yourself off from that light force through that action. In the same way, when a person keeps Shabbat, they said this as keeping the entire Torah, which means all of your spiritual limbs are renewed and refreshed through that process, right? And so this is the dynamic of the system of creation. This is the system of of how we function as human beings, and this is the recalibration that we have to have about ourselves in life, in the world around us, and to see these different levels of desires that are on the outside of us, but know that they're also a part of us too. They're part of our soul. They're a part of the different worlds that we function in. Anyway, so we'll continue on Wednesday. And any questions, any points? When I get the link to Rabbi Shaddai Shir for this evening, if he does it, I mean, I haven't seen the link yet, but I'll send you guys the link on What's Up app, and you guys could tune in, check it out, see if it's if it's something. But he invited you guys, and he knows that we're learning and everything. So he said it would be nice. It's a women's shir. I mean, I'm sure you could check it out as a husband, make sure it's okay, right? So it won't be a big deal if you guys were both in together, but it's geared towards women. But hey, I remember we did this. He did a women's share in Israel, in the old city of Jerusalem, and it was just like crazy. It was like very deep, and it was packed. It was really intense. Okay, so I'm gonna send that to you guys, and then we'll continue on Wednesday. Baruch atah Adonai leolam, amen ve'amen. Shabbat tov, and we'll be in touch.